What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads, a Sunday night game that went into overtime. Definitely shouldn't have. Playing the Orlando Magic, they're a bad basketball team, and that's the second game now where they came out flat. We saw what happened in Brooklyn, and I don't feel we need to revisit that. And now you witnessed another ugly one, a slow start. It looked like James Harden was passing up some shots, which is not a good thing to witness whatsoever. Joel Embiid with some late blocks, which was big. And at the end of the day, Tobias Harris comes up clutch. But really, the Orlando Magic, I don't want to see Cole Anthony with the headband all the way down through his eyeballs. You thought I wore my headbands low. This dude, you could barely see anything. I don't know how he saw the basketball at all, but he's jacking up threes. That's going in the overtime period. And Matisse Thybulle's taking, what's he doing? Taking chances, trying to get a steal out by the perimeter, which is a foul. He ends the day with 18 minutes, 0 points scored, 5 personal fouls, and he could barely play the game because he did not have an impact big enough. And I'm sorry, but I am bothered by Matisse Thybulle. I can't stand watching him play and fall backwards in the offensive department every single season. It burns my eyes, and it's interesting because on 97.5 The Fanatic this weekend, we had on Austin Krail, who covers the 76ers for the Pain and Lines, and something he brought up is think about what other teams might offer for Matisse. Are the Sixers willing to go in that category, in that range of money, if you are somewhat strapped, your hands are tied, because he cannot play the sport the right way? It'll be very interesting for the longer-term conversation of Matisse Thybulle, but that's not the importance tonight. Of course, the importance is talking about the disaster that we just witnessed in Orlando. And before we get into it a bit more, if you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button as well. I greatly appreciate all of your support. If you're looking to buy any tickets for any event out there, a concert, a Sixers game, a Flyers game, you can use promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout for $20 off. So I'm paying for your parking. I'm essentially evaporating all those fees you get hit with. There's so many great tickets and great prices at SeatGeek right now that these $20 added to it, this $20, oh man, you're missing out for sure if you're not capitalizing. Promo code BROADS. And then lastly, TikTok, Broads Media. We're having a lot of fun over there, so make sure you hit the follow button. But look, I'm somewhere in between, if I'm going to be honest with you. Now that I saw it again, first off, I anticipated sitting Joel Embiid and sitting James Harden. And in my opinion, I wouldn't have played them. And now I saw Kyle Neubeck of Philly Voice say it would be real diminishing or real deflating, and I'm paraphrasing, but it would suck if this is what held back Embiid from playing tomorrow against the Joker. And if we know his competitive fire, I would find that very hard to believe that we would ever be in that type of situation. But I was shocked to see him play. I would be sitting him. There's no way in hell I would have been playing Embiid tonight. But I think that the competitive fire of Joel Embiid has now progressed so much that he doesn't want to sit around. He doesn't want to play that game. He doesn't want to be treated the way that he was in the past. Now it's go mode, and he wants it to be basically where you're not even second guessing if he touches the floor. He is touching the floor, and part of me respects that like no other. And then there's also a side of me that goes, dude, shut up, sit down. You're going to play the next 15, 20 games in a row. Relax. It's the Orlando Magic. I don't care. Now, ultimately, you needed him, and he had that monster three, and I already alluded a couple possessions on the defensive end. It was wacky, though. He missed both free throws. James Harden missed a free throw during a big segment. Doc Rivers with an awful play design out of a timeout at the end of regulation. So there were some bizarre moments. I'm watching 2-minute stretches of just disgusting, horrendous basketball where you could tell the Orlando Magic, they don't have it. They're bad. They're a bad basketball team. They don't have anyone to settle it down in a big moment. Mo Bamba's jacking up a three that you could leave as soon as it left his hands, that it was hitting the back iron and bouncing off because it was a tragic possession when you needed something way better. You needed to calm things down. But that just defines, I'm bringing that up to you because it defines, one, the craziness that we witnessed. And on top of that, what type of basketball team the Orlando Magic are. but it's not as if the Sixers responded with anything magnificent. You're lucky to have Tobias start the game the way that he did. Him put up 20-plus points and really working on this new lifestyle that he's going to have to do if this team will be successful. And it comes down to being a catch-and-shoot guy. It's almost like you need to transition to a whole different mentality of what Danny Green would do in the corner. We love that. We praise it forever. And every time that he's that open in the corner, he just lets it fly, doesn't even think about it. It's hitting his hands and is out of his hands as soon as you blink. That needs to be Tobias Harris. And it seems like there is a lot of emphasis drawn in that direction, which obviously a game like tonight, to put it back in perspective of why Joel Embiid and why this team might have thrown all 5 guys out there and said, hey, have at it, is because there is limited time into the playoffs and you don't want to waste any sort of quarter or any sort of game, a 48 game to go out and work on things so Tobias can get more comfortable. So Embiid and James Harden can get more used to each other with the 2-man game. And I'd say there's a couple of things that stand out to me right now. And just because they stand out to me right now doesn't mean they don't find the balance on how to perfectly do this by the time that we need them to figure it out. So they are definitely looking at drawing a lot of fouls, which at times I'm okay with. But when it becomes such a focus point or focal point, it's all you're worried about, it sometimes takes away from finishing the play, by finishing at the rim, by putting the ball through the hoop, because you're constantly just worried about, oh, I got hit. Oh, I got fouled. Oh, I got hit on my elbow. Oh, I got hit in my chest. Dude, worry about scoring. And this is just a combination of both of them. And I love them and they're fantastic players, but sometimes it does seem like that is their idea and that is their concept, where instead of trying to score, it's just trying to get a foul call. And that's fine. I'm not saying that that's a bad way to play basketball. There is a line, though, and I think they cross that line when they're playing a game. And then also, I thought James Harden was passing up shots where he needs to shoot. And I get it. His shooting percentage was not good. He was missing a lot of field goals. And he was taking some threes that he wouldn't make. But still, when James Harden is wide open, you live and die with James Harden wide open. Instead, he hesitates. He waits. 4 seconds tick off the clock. It looks like he's way too uncomfortable based off of how wide open he is. But we're talking about James Harden, and instead, he kicks it to his left to George Niang. And I'm okay with George Niang taking shots right now because he's got a ton of confidence. And he's an amazing spark plug for you. And when it's hot, it's rolling, and the team has this different sense of urgency because his vibe is just rubbing off on everybody on that Sixers bench and everybody on the floor. But James Harden is going to have to deliver. Now, I'm seeing this all over the place, and I'm not going to buy into the nonsense or go crazy at all. I see it in the chat, and I also got some text messages here. Looks like Harden is back to his old self playing hero ball. You mean the old self that dominates basketball games? I'm confused. This team's second in the Eastern Conference. Now, I'm not going to tell you that being number one means you are great, because last year the Sixers were number one, and they had a major flaw that held them back insanely. But I'm just going to let you know that just seeing these last 2 games does not automatically mean that James Harden is a disaster, that James Harden is a bad basketball player. He's had 2 games in a row that have been a bit iffy, that have been a bit on the slower side for James Harden, that hasn't been as efficient as we would like. That doesn't mean that the trade is awful. It doesn't mean that the Sixers suck. It doesn't mean that the Sixers are a terrible basketball team and they can never do anything. It means that they have some things to work on. It means that they still need to apply a lot of different concepts to their game and get back to it. They also just have to execute better. If James Harden plays better, then Tyrese Maxey plays better too. They're one and the same. So it's going to take a James Harden to make Tyrese Maxey as open as we've seen in games past. Do you remember seeing some of these moments where it's, damn, how is Tyrese Maxey that wide open? How is nobody within 8 feet of Tyrese Maxey? It's because the threat of James Harden opens that up. It just hasn't been the case as of late because he hasn't been drilling his shots. And when you have the history that James Harden has, which is 3rd most three-pointers in NBA history, and the ability to drop 30 plus and plenty of ways to dominate a game, then I think I'll live with a couple of some ugly ones and a couple of some tough moments if it means that in the long window view, you still get those unbelievable efforts. And you will. You're just in a bit of a rut. The Brooklyn Nets right now, everybody's high on Kevin Durant, 50 plus. There was a time where they were losing basketball games, and they were not healthy, but even when a Kyrie Irving came back to a game that was on the road, or Kevin Durant came back and they lost the game, no one's pointing that out. There's plenty of moments where teams go through tough stretches, even if it's against teams that you are way better than. So, yeah, there's part of me that thinks of a win is a win, and this is sometimes how it goes in the NBA. And then there's another side that says they got a lot of work to do. There's a lot to work on right now. But we knew that. To expect there to be zero things to iron out would be foolish. It's just setting yourself up for false expectations. Tobias Harris has to find a new life. James Harden needs to figure it out a bit. Joel Embiid needs to they have to figure out what makes them comfortable on the floor. How do we operate as a new unit? We didn't have a primary ball handler on this team prior to the move. Now you do. Okay, so it takes time to find your mold. That is what is occurring right now. And maybe they overlooked their opponent a little bit tonight as well. I can't rule that out. I think that's also a factor. There's a lot of different layers here, and these layers all have a percentage of the pie. And are they probably thinking about the Joker? Are they probably thinking of the Denver Nuggets in Philadelphia, waiting for them to return to Orlando for a matchup tomorrow night? Knowing that the MVP conversations and knowing that you have the two best big men in the entire league with unreal skill sets that differentiate from one another. But that's what makes it so damn intriguing and so damn barroom conversation worthy when you're having cold ones and you're looking to your left. One guy goes, no, this guy's better. You go, no, Embiid's better. No, Jokic's better. Right? All that. You don't think that? Maybe you go, this team stinks in the Orlando Magic. I'm not saying that's right, but I'm sure that there's a part of that as well. I'll tell you what was bizarre as hell to hear, though. When Markelle Fultz drained the three, and you hear on the broadcast that Markelle Fultz for three makes it a 10-point lead again for Orlando. Excuse me? Excuse me? No, we're not doing that. Actually, I don't even know if she said Orlando. She might have just said, and Markelle Fultz hits a three for the 10-point lead. Because I think I saw some tweets out there going, imagine hearing that a few years back. What we thought would be, what we envisioned. And I'll be honest with you, in terms of the Markelle Fultz hate, I'm nowhere even close to that anymore. I don't feel any sort of way about Markelle Fultz. He's going through what he's going through in Orlando. He had the big injury. He's coming back. He's playing a role off the bench right now. He just looks carefree. And I think the drama of being the number one pick and Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics, all that noise has just evaporated and is no longer a part of the same level of fire, right? There's not those same storylines. Now he's just about a number one overall pick that failed in the beginning of his career, got traded to Orlando, went through a massive injury, and now he's trying to rework himself back into the NBA. That's more of the views, right? I think it's easier to support that type of story. I don't really have too much hate for it. Out of sight, out of mind. You got James Harden, Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons is out of town. I don't have time. Look, I got so many emotions tied into this team. I got so many emotions tied into the Phillies news today. I got so many emotions still towards Ben Simmons that Markelle Fultz, you don't deserve any of my time. I'm pulling for you. I'm rooting for you. I don't got any sort of sour feelings left to put towards that piece of the pie of the Markelle Fultz story. And by the way, there are some Phillies topics I want to hit on, and I will Monday morning, 10 a.m. live right here on Broads Media's YouTube channel. So if you want to discuss the Odubel news and Dave Dombrowski's press conference and all, Monday morning, almost said Sunday. No, Monday morning at 10 a.m., we will absolutely do that. The phone lines I am going to open right now at 856-442-9805. The phone number, 856-442-9805. Opening up the phone lines now. If you would like to climb into the conversation, I would love to hear your thoughts. I would also read your text messages as well, and the chat. That's going crazy too. Thibault 0 for 4 in 18 minutes, 5 personal fouls. I didn't like the effort. I think it's fair to say the effort is the most disappointing part of things. You could be mad about not being efficient, and it could look sloppy because you're missing your shots. But ultimately, it's because it didn't seem like they were willing to compete, and that's what it looked like against the Brooklyn Nets as well. So it's been 2 games. From this 2-game layer, yeah, I'm with you. I'm not happy. I'm not saying that this is okay. I'm going to hold them responsible, and there's accountability involved for my eyes, and I demand it to change. This isn't something over 5, 6, 7, 8 games that I'm willing to sit through and clap my hands and say, don't worry about it. Everything will be just fine if it's 8 games in a row. 2 games in a row? Yeah, I mean, I'm not satisfied, and I'm holding them accountable. Cannot continue to happen. But I'm not going to lose sight of everything just because of this. Now, keep in mind, a back-to-back tomorrow after going to overtime tonight and utilizing more energy than you probably would have imagined before the game tipped off. Should I just pretend that they didn't play an overtime game tonight when we see them play tomorrow if they start slow? Or is the starting slow part of a big enough sample size that you believe it's a common theme? And if that's the case, I can't knock that, because this is even prior to what we've seen over this 2-game stretch. This is something that's real. They do start out slow. And against worse opponents, they have a track record of fighting back and winning those games. And then against really good opponents, they don't have the toughness to put away a squad because that squad doesn't allow them to have that type of stretch and have that type of run to win the basketball game. And that's the difference, obviously. So we'll see what this means for tomorrow. And the last time they had a big game with a ton of feelings involved, they got overwhelmed and they got overmatched. Let's not see that again tomorrow against the Joker. All right, we'll go to the phones and let's start things off. Good evening. You're on Broads Media.
Good evening. Happy daylight saving time.
Yes. Happy daylight saving time to you as well. What's happening?
So just a quick point of order I'm a little concerned about. Again, we're going to want to harper back to the offense. So it seems like the teams are kind of adjusting to the Sixers, where when we run the high pick and roll, they are doubling and jumping out James Harden. And to me, this should be a quick, easy way to pass the ball to Embiid, whoever's rolling, and just punish people. But somehow we're having a little trouble with this the last couple of games. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I also feel that you can dare James Harden in isolation right now based off of the poor efficiency and him just trying to take it. It doesn't look as much jump. There's not as much juice with his drives. There was a little bit more pop to it in the beginning phases of his tenure here with the Sixers. But as of late, it's been less and less. So it's not only just a look that makes him feel like there's 2 guys coming on him, or if it's isolation and it's just one-on-one on man-on-man type of scenario. I just think as a whole, the team is out of sync offensively. And a part of this, too, is when you see Matisse Thybulle give you 0 spacing on the offensive side, we're witnessing another Ben Simmons problem, which is this guy doesn't do anything. Do you know how hard it is to be a starter? And he only played 18 minutes tonight because of the personal fouls. But there's been a lot of games as of late when you look at the box score and Matisse Thybulle, who starts, gives you 0 points. 0. Ben Simmons would give you 16 and we still bitch and complain about how his spacing's a problem. Matisse gives you 0. That plays a role in what these looks are defensively because they don't have to respect him at all.
Yeah, it's tough to win in the league like that, where you have one guy that's such an inept shooter and he's getting open looks. It's nice that he's kind of shooting up, but man, he's just building a brick house for us, so it's tough. But other than that, I mean, I'm glad Tobias is starting to kind of get his groove back a little bit, so that's some positive after this game.
Yeah, Tobias definitely has to get going, and thank you so much for the call. I've had some buddies in my group chats complain that, it's just the Orlando Magic, so who gives a damn? There's no reason to be excited about Tobias making his shots. If he wasn't making his shots, then that's more of a problem. But I'm like, well, you can't control that. He's out there tonight, and he hasn't been in groove. He's playing the Magic, who stinks, but he found some sort of groove. I'm not telling you this is the end-all, be-all. I'm not telling you Tobias Harris has now found himself completely. But isn't this a fine thing to witness? Isn't this a fine performance? I don't know how you bash the performance or look at it in any sort of negative light. To me, I witnessed a guy who needs to find a new role, tell himself before the game. And the good thing about it is him mentioning catch and shoot and needing to do it is him acknowledging it. Tonight, when you watch the game, didn't we all see him apply that to his game as best as he could tonight? So we know the problem and we know what he needs to do. And then we're seeing him, one, say it publicly that he needs to do that, which is the right thing. Could you imagine? If he said, I gotta post up more. No! Please, no! So he's saying he has to do the right thing, which is the acknowledgement, step one. And then step two is doing everything in your power throughout the game to try and accomplish that goal. And that was a part of this too. So steps in the right direction, regardless of the opponent, regardless of the team, regardless of whoever is on the other side. It's about just looking at it from the Tobias Harris angle. And there's a style to his game that has to be more catch and shoot. And that's a style that we saw today in his brain. And I think that that's a massive win in terms of the Tobias Harris level. But yeah, I mean, the previous caller brought up the defense. And defensively, with the way things are being handled on James Harden, I think it's more just about the way the isolation ball is going on right now with some one-on-one matchups. And they have to figure out the perfect balance. That's not rare. Based off your circumstances, based off the additions to your team, this is not a rare situation to find yourself in. If it was, I'd have more rage. I'd be more disappointed. Now, they have to work on it. They need to get better. They have to analyze certain sets. It's just not long enough now to throw everything away because of 2 regular season games. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but I'll tell you what, this Sixers team is in a tough spot. This will be adversity, mental toughness, physical toughness, battling hard for over 48 minutes, and now you see a tough opponent on your floor. Adversity. Let's see how they respond to adversity. We've seen them respond well in the past. We've also seen some hiccups. When they played Boston, and then they responded on the road against Miami for a back-to-back. Huge wins. Massive. Can we see something similar with a solid performance on a second half of a back-to-back? I really hope so. Alfonso with a $5 donation. The Magic have been balling out lately and keeping games close and beating teams they shouldn't, so I'm not tripping that they came out and punched us. Yeah, it was a punch. I'm more just disgusted with the Sixers effort more than anything else. That's where I think I'm more bothered. Screw Orlando. It doesn't matter about the opponent. It just the way it looks from the Sixers, what they're trying to run, how out of sync they look. You are right, though, when you talk about the Orlando Magic. They beat the Minnesota Timberwolves their last game. They beat the Pelicans the game before. Not that the Pelicans are anything special, but it just shows you as of late they have a little bit more swag in them. And then they took the Sixers to a tough game tonight. They played the Suns in a 3-point game, 102-99. So they're playing a better brand of basketball, but that's no excuse because the Sixers have to be sharper. Thank you for the $5. We'll go back to the phones. Good evening. You're on Broads Media.
Yo, what up? This is Rock from North Philly.
Yo, what's happening, bro?
Yo, so I'm going crazy trying to figure out, I don't know if anybody else noticed it. I just tuned in. I don't know if you touched on it. But what the fuck is going on with Maxey? What happened?
I honestly
Like
feel...
They literally, they tell him to fall back behind the scenes. Yo, he's, the last 2 games since the Brooklyn game, he only been standing at the 3-point line at the opposite side of the court where the ball at. Every play. I don't know if anyone noticed that. Like, what the fuck happened? He was averaging 20 plus a game.
Well, I think it comes down to Harden. James Harden was the reason why Maxey was able to explode. And now that James Harden is playing poorly because he's your primary ball handler, he's your quarterback, he's your floor general. And if he's struggling and he's trying to break down defenders and go to the rim, it's very hard to get some of these other players going. And that has been a knock on James Harden. I'd still rather take his positives for his flaws. But the reasons why Tyrese Maxey isn't having that same sort of jolt in his game is because, well, James Harden kind of had that going for him.
Yeah, it's been weird. I know it's only been a couple games, but like the change has been so drastic. It's like, yo, what the fuck? Like, no one is talking about Maxey. You think he scored 10 points today? And it seemed like, to me, I got a funny feeling that something happened in the locker room or something.
Nah, that's going way too overboard, and I appreciate the call. And to me, it's not rocket science. If James Harden plays better, the entire team plays better. When your point guard has a good night, the rest of your team has a good night, especially when James Harden's the type of dude that does get into isolation ball. So if Chris Paul struggles, the Suns are going to have a tougher time operating. Tyrese Maxey, when you say, well, what happened to him? What happened to him is James Harden. James Harden is struggling, and that's severely impacting Tyrese Maxey. It really is that simple. That's your answer. That's why Maxey is falling on his face right now and not playing with that same sort of energy. Because the threat of James Harden and what defenders have to do when he's giving you 20 points at half, or he scored 18 in the first half, or he knocked down 3 threes in a specific quarter, that level of fire and that shot meter that gets hot like you're playing NBA 2K, it draws the defense towards him differently, where right now it's, go ahead, James, beat us. And if he starts to, then you make your adjustments. But you can dare him to beat you right now due to the style that he's playing. And if you're the other team, you go, all right, do it, Harden. Do it. Keep going. Let's see if it works. Because now Maxey's not going. Thibault can't score. Try and get yours. Because we've seen as of late, you trying to get yours and us daring you means Maxey's not going. Compared to the alternative, which is, oh, Maxey's stroking the ball well. Oh, Maxey's hitting a couple shots. So to me, it's as simple can get here. Why we're not stressing Maxey as much as other guys? Because it boils down to when your superstars perform, specifically one with the ball in their hands, then everybody has that opportunity to really take that extra step. If Maxey's playing off ball, which he should with James Harden, he should play off ball. And we had no issues with him playing off ball when James Harden was playing well. No, why is that? Because it works. So the reason we're not highlighting Maxey as much is because it boils down to when Harden does his job, everything changes. $10 from Darius in the chat. Good evening, bros. I just feel like the Sixers are lacking intensity. I agree with that. Also, does Harden not have the ability to catch and shoot? Seems like he almost dribbled to take a shot. He does definitely put the ball on the floor. And I mean, his clear sign of James Harden basketball is dribble, 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 step back three. So that is part of his repertoire and part of what he feels more comfortable in his bag. But I am less worried about him putting the ball on the floor. And I'm more worried about the fact that when he does have an open shot right now, the unwillingness to shoot the ball, which is not something that I ever thought that we'd be accustomed to seeing out of James Harden at any point. I don't care if he's wearing a 76ers uniform or somebody else's uniform. In what universe is James Harden not shooting the rock? And maybe that's because they're putting a big notice and a big warning up. Get your team going. Find ways to get Niang ball. Find ways to get other guys. We need you to run the floor too. So are they drilling into James? Hey, make sure everyone's available. But at the same time, you don't hinder James Harden that way. Come on. Who tells James Harden to not take wide open threes in the NBA? And thank you, Darius, for the $10. I greatly appreciate it. Effort, intensity. That's more of the storyline than anything else. Shots will fall for James Harden. This isn't James Harden. James Harden history tells you that he's nowhere as bad as this. Does he have these games? Yes. Yes. No one's running away from that. These are the type of games that James Harden flirts in there throughout an 82-game sample size, and even once in a while in the playoffs. And that's clearly a talking point of all the James Harden haters out there from the national media and even from some Sixers fans. But I think it's important to go through the game logs here. I want to look at the game logs in the playoffs against the San Antonio Spurs. And this is the Golden State year. Let's go to, was that 16, 17 when they lost to the San Antonio? Yeah. So, okay, game 1 of that series, he scored 20 points and had 14 assists. Game 2, which they lost, he had 13 points and 10 assists. Game 3, 43 points and 5 assists. Game 4, 28 points and 12 assists. Game 5, 33 points and 10 assists. Now, he did have, did I mess up the games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I was right. That was game 5. And then game 6, he only had 10 points, 7 assists, and 6 turnovers. But my point is, 33, 28, 43, 20, and 14. These are the numbers that he has in postseason games where you need that. Without that, you're not even in contention. Without that, you're not even involved. Now, of course, within those moments where you are involved, there are some ugly ones. And that's inevitable. But you're not even in conversation or in dialogue without those other efforts and those other performances too. And that's how I assess a player that traditionally is fantastic, is phenomenal, is one of the best 75 players to ever put on a uniform in the NBA whenever there's a down moment, whenever there's a tough time. Now, we just lost our caller, 856-442-9805. I just want to make sure you understand exactly how the phone lines work here, where if you can hear me speaking through your phone, that means you are on hold and you are waiting to get on the air. Some people don't have a lot of experience with calling into radio shows or anything of that nature, so they feel if they hear me that it's not exactly what they need to hear because they want to get on the air. But if I pick up and you're on hold and you hear me through your phone speaking as if I'm doing the show live, that means you made it through and you are on hold, just to give you a little clarification. With that, we'll go to Nolan in Hilltown, PA. Hey, Nolan.
Hey, bros. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I just started tuning into the live stream, man. Tonight it wasn't the most sexiest performances for the Sixers. I think, but by no reason, in my opinion, that it definitely should have been a lot larger of a margin for them winning this game against Orlando. But hey, a win's a win. We'll take it. It's not going to be any easier for them down the road beginning tomorrow with a second half of a back-to-back against Jokic and the Nuggets.
I agree with you completely, and thanks, Nolan. It should have been a bigger blowout. It should have been a massive victory. They tweeted out, the Sixers, something about a W, and they had the capital W, probably a lowercase w. If you throw out the lowercase w, it makes a lot more sense. Yes, a win is a win, but it definitely was a bit demoralizing. And I just wonder, when you look at their schedule ahead, because it's not just the Denver Nuggets, there's a solid stretch of games that you should be very intrigued by, but they play the Nuggets at home tomorrow. They play the Cavaliers on Wednesday in Cleveland. They have the Dallas Mavericks on Friday at home here in South Philadelphia. On Sunday, they play the Raptors at home. On Monday, second half of a back-to-back, they play the Miami Heat. Then they fly out west and they play the Lakers. They have the Clippers. They have the Suns. They come back home against the Bucks. So their next handful of opponents, really, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games after this Orlando Magic game is pretty damn intense, and it's going to be a bang-bang type of effort against a lot of these teams that have some life to them. So with that, is this a perfect example of assuming they'd roll through and just wax the Orlando Magic, who can't win a lot of basketball games? Probably. But when you peel back all the storylines, They have traditionally started out slow. That's more than just an Orlando Magic topic. What can they do? Now, Doc Rivers has referenced now that it's about the defensive side, and that's impacting their run on their starts. And, I mean, I guess that could be true. If you play better defense early on, you get out in transition, you can score early buckets and just feel better about seeing the ball go through the hoop. And you would imagine that that would establish some sort of, hey, guys, here we go. You're doing well out there. Let's keep it going. You keep your foot on the gas, and you just bang. You beat them. You beat them hard. You punch them in the jaw early on with that defense. They feel less confident. The Magic don't think they can hang in as much. You stretch out a 20-point lead at some point in that first half, maybe 16-point lead, just enough to make the Orlando Magic feel uncomfortable and feel like we don't have a shot here, all because your defense is willing to fight early on. Get some steals early. Maybe Matisse Thybulle gets his hands in the mix, and then now Tyrese Maxey's flying down court full speed, and now Thybulle has his role going. Maxey scores a bucket, and he's been slow as of late, that he's feeling better about himself. So the slow starts is now because other teams are scoring easily, putting up 40 points in the first quarter like we saw with the Brooklyn Nets. When you're allowing high 30s in the first quarter, it diminishes your confidence. And now you're just putting added stress and an added layer of adversity to you. We got to climb back, even if the team's bad. You're constantly playing from behind. At some point, that mentally plays with your mind. And also, probably physically too, where now you're utilizing so much more power because of you knowing that you need to fight back as hard as you do. So I can get behind that narrative out of Doc, but the problem is I don't know how you change that, because this team is not going to turn into some sort of defensive juggernaut. And now does it need to be a juggernaut, or does it have to be better than what it is? Because those are two totally different conversations. We witnessed Joel Embiid late block the shit out of a few balls off the backboard. If Matisse can do his thing while Embiid does a little bit of that, like we saw in the fourth quarter, or like we saw in overtime, like we saw during the late stretches, can that just happen in the first quarter and that be enough? I don't know. I don't know how they're going to change their defensive problem. The problem is the guy who defends on your team can't shoot a basketball, and stop acting as if that's not a problem. That's a major problem. And the reason why he's not is just like I said with Maxey. His ability to cut off the ball and his ability to be a playmaker running around is dependent on James Harden getting him the ball and reading the court properly. Matisse Thybulle gets double digits. He gets 8 points. He gets 6 points. He's active, and he's moving, and he's a part of everything when James Harden plays better. So I can't rule that out either. Look, I'm searching for answers just like everybody else. My job here with the microphone is to share my thoughts and at times speak out loud. And as soon as the game is over, sometimes that's my time to speak out loud, and I'm trying to figure it out just like you. What can change? What is the difference? Why is this happening? I'm looking for those answers and talking through it. All right. Back to the phones we go. Good evening.
What's up, Rhodes? I hope you're having a good night.
I am having it was a tough watch, but I am having a good night. How's your night going?
It's going good. Flyers suck, by the way. But
did they end up losing? Because the last I saw, it was a heartbreak tie with third. I'm telling you what, the Flyers
they lost.
are just dude. The Flyers are insane to me. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, they lost, but I want to bring up that Tobias Harris had a good night. I mean, obviously, it's concerning that we barely beat the Magic, but at least Tobias Harris seems to be getting back on track. I mean, this was his first performance with Harden where he went over 20, 10 of 18 from the field. I mean, he's efficient. And I have one question to ask you. Like, in a playoff scenario, how many points per game do you think that we as a fan base should be satisfied with Tobias Harris scoring in the playoffs?
Fair question, and thank you so much for the call. Last year, it was just under 22. It was about 21.8. Now, he had such a different, massive role there, and I'll stay consistent with what I thought from the beginning. I called Maxey and Tobias a 3A, 3B, where you need a good night from either one of those both of those having decent nights, or the other one going off for 30-something, right? Like if Maxey goes off for 34 and Tobias has a bit of a stinker, okay. If they both have 17, okay. If Toby goes off for 30 and Maxey goes off or has a weaker night and doesn't go off and only gives you 8 or 10, okay. So to me, for Tobias, knowing what he averaged last year, I think comfortably, to answer your question, I'd say something along the lines of 16. If it's efficient, because I've seen him score an inefficient 16 that felt sloppy and felt all over the place. But if Tobias Harris can give you 15 points, 16 points, space the floor, catch and shoot, take a lot of threes, and when defensive collapse on certain players in a half-court set and the ball kicks out to him wide open, if that's his role, if he's taking those corner threes and he gives you 15 points or so, 16 points, and they're efficient and timely, I think that that's fair as long as Maxey has his respected point total as well. And then, of course, this all is under the premise that James Harden's playing well and Embiid's playing well. If Tobias Harris gives you the 16, 17-ish in that range, 15, 16, 17, that I'm looking for at an efficient rate, but James Harden blows and he's 2 for 13, well then no, that's not going to be good enough, and the blame shouldn't go on Tobias at that point. It should fully be on Harden. Harden right now, he's not a long-term issue. He's been the issue over the last 2 games. And with the James Harden experience, this was inevitable. This happens with him. This is part of James Harden. With that said, part of James Harden is a 34-point night. Part of James Harden is 28 and 16 or 28 and 14, having one of those big assist numbers. You can harp on the bad ones, and they should be criticized. But don't act as if for the amount of bad ones, there's not 6 great ones. So maybe your expectations were wrong on James Harden where he doesn't have the clunkers. We're just now witnessing what James Harden clunkers do for the rest of the team because he's very ball dominant. And it's not a bad thing to be very ball dominant. But right now, it's weird because part of his problem is he's not taking open shots and he's being too unselfish. So he's passing the ball to George Niang or he's passing the ball around the perimeter when I would like for him to shoot it. But at the same time, because he's so out of whack right now and out of touch with his own personal game, because he's so ball dominant, it snowballs down the road for everybody else to have some disappointing moments too. And I know that kind of sounds hypocritical because on one end, I'm saying he's giving the ball to his other teammates so much. And then on the one side, I'm saying that he's not shooting well enough where I just lost my train of thought and I don't know what that was. But yes, it sounds hypocritical. It's not hypocritical, though, and it makes a lot of sense. Matthew from Philadelphia just tuned in and was wondering what my thoughts were on Doc Rivers taking 3.5 quarters to start running the pick and roll, or Joel and James Harden. I'm thinking that this team right now is still trying to learn one another. And they get isolation heavy at times, but James Harden is known to be a killer in isolation too. I would like to see probably more pick and rolls. Yeah, I can't argue about that. I would like to see some more pick and rolls. There have been times where it worked very fluidly, where they pick and roll. Joel Embiid gets the ball rolling to the basket full speed, and he either finishes at the rim, he gets fouled at the rim, or he kicks it out to a wide open Danny Green, who's not available right now, but that could be a George Niang or hell, maybe even a Tobias Harris, or some more pick and pops involved. Yeah, I'm not anti-utilizing them more in a 2-man game and seeing some more roles as a whole. I think this offense over the last 2 games have been getting stuck with being stagnant. And I wonder if that is because they're trying to incorporate something else. We want to get Toby going. Well, maybe because we're trying to get Toby going, that changes what they run. And because it changes what they run, it's making the offense a bit more stagnant. So now they have to find their perfect balance to get Toby incorporated still the way that they would like to, but don't lose sight of a better 2-man game or anything along those lines. And like I said before, I'm trying to figure this out and talk to you and figure out why. Why is it looking different at times? What is going on? Why is it stagnant? Why am I screaming at my TV against the Brooklyn Nets and I'm watching in the post someone pick up their dribble and 2 defenders come swarming Joel Embiid, James Harden? No one's moving. there's 3-4 guys just hanging around the three-point line with their hands at their chest, screaming for the basketball, but not realizing they're not moving to put themselves in a better position for the player who's in trouble to get them the damn rock. That's how this works. Let's go. Let's start moving. That's why if you saw the cut, and I tweeted it out on Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter, @Rhodes81, of Doc Rivers going like this. Let's go. Let's go. Unless he was referencing a travel. I don't remember. Was there a travel before that? And he was doing one of these. It looked like he was trying to say, let's go. Let's pick up the pace. Let's play with a little bit more pop. Because Maxey took advantage of so many guys with his speed, not really seeing it. The team played with more up and down pace. They played with more oomph, with the speed of the game. Now it seems so slowed down and so out of sync. And that needs to change. Now, the playoffs are more slowed down, no doubt. And that's true. And it'll matter to run better sets when the game is slowed down. But right now, I think it's going to a level that it doesn't necessarily need to go right now. And that's part of the problem on why we're witnessing what we're seeing right now. Let's see here. When you go to the chat, I love Matisse Thybulle too, but perhaps a starter who provides more than 0 points, we wouldn't be in that overtime position in the first place. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm going to be the first guy to absolutely crush Matisse Thybulle consistently because I just feel that it is so damn problematic. And because we like him and because he smiles, we don't give him the proper criticism that he deserves. And no, Matisse Thybulle is a major issue for the Philadelphia 76ers. A major issue, not a little one, a major one. And another part of this too, which isn't going to change right now and won't change for this season, but Tyrese Maxey is another player that we absolutely enamor and we connect to because of how hard he plays the game and how he's a gym rat that loves to be there every single damn day. But realistically, Tyrese Maxey gets annihilated and obliterated on the defensive side of the basketball, and he gets picked apart. Seth Curry stole his lunch money, while on the other end, knowing that Seth Curry can't defend a lick, Tyrese Maxey and the 76ers did not target that and attack nonstop. And that seems to be a bit of a common issue right now, which is where do we want to focus our offense at? Where, all right, we want Tobias Harris to get some shots, but at the same time, is there a mismatch, a matchup that we like that we can go after? They didn't even look in Seth Curry's direction, and he almost was just in a spot similar to Trae Young last year in the postseason where he wasn't even worried about using any sort of energy on the defensive end, which then allows him to have more in the gas tank on the offensive side. And there's a correlation on why Seth Curry had the night that he did in Philadelphia just a few nights ago on Thursday night. Where's the speed? Where's using the skill sets to your advantage? Maxey has a skill set. Use it to the advantage. Doesn't seem like they do all the time. We always go back to, though, if James Harden played better, everyone else naturally plays better. And superstars are the reasons why you win games in this league. Kevin Durant against the New York Knicks today. Look what happened. When your superstars perform, it feels and looks a lot different. And the last two games, James Harden hasn't. Doesn't mean he's not capable of it. Doesn't mean he never will. Because his track record shows for these tough games, he's got a lot and 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 a lot of great ones. A lot of great ones. In case you misheard me. A lot of great ones for the poor ones. So you sacrifice some of these ugly, hideous efforts, knowing that around the corner, 26-14, 27-12. Those dominant performances, they're shortly coming. All right, let's go to Lance in Kansas City. Hey, Lance.
Hey, Broads. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say I'm a big fan of the trade. I support it. Support Harden. My my question is, I wonder what your thoughts are about his partying habits, specifically about his, I guess, his night out after the Sixers' brutal loss against the Nets when he was, what was it, with Little Baby and whoever else.
Yeah, Travis Scott. You probably won't like my answer, Lance. I don't care. I don't care that James Harden goes out because this dude is unbelievable and has always been going out. So I don't believe.
No, I know.
Yeah, so I know that that's a easy thing to say. And I'm not saying you feel this way, but as a fan of sports, if you have a bad night and you lose against Brooklyn, and before the game even happened, it was a birthday party of going out that was planned prior. Are you supposed to just say, screw my entire life, I don't care about my outside living because I had a bad game against the Nets?
I agree with you. I don't personally have a problem with it. I'm wondering if guys like Embiid are going to feel any kind of way about it. Like,
well, Embiid's
and I'm not saying
a partier. No, Embiid's not a partier. So I think that that's a fascinating storyline to bring up. But at the same time, there's too much respect in what James Harden has done in his career, where for Joel Embiid, like once you hit a professional level, you have a different lifestyle than other people, and you just kind of adjust to that, where his track record speaks for himself, where I don't think Embiid would question James Harden at this point.
I hope not. Yeah, I hope that it's not going to drive any kind of wedge. And I don't know. I mean, I know that you have some experience playing at higher levels, in your hockey days. So I know that.
Yeah, thanks, Lance. I appreciate it. It's overblown. When they were winning 5 games and they were on a win streak and they put together a nice little window of good basketball, no one had a problem with James Harden partying. Now they lose 2 games and James Harden's not allowed to party and he's not allowed to have a social life outside of the game. I got no problem with him doing what he does. He's where he's at right now, and he did what he did the other night all the time. I got no problem with James Harden. You know who goes out? All these other guys go out and party. It's just what it is. It's the NBA. It's professional sports. It's the NFL. It's the NHL. Guys are out partying all the damn time. This is not a correlation because James Harden, when he gives you 53, he probably partied the night before. When he gives you 42, he might have had a night out 2 nights before that. When he gives you 28 and 12, he probably had a night out previously before that game occurred, whether it was 1 day or 2 days or 3 days before, it probably happened. For him going out with his friends after the Brooklyn Nets game, I don't care that he did. And if you do, then you're just outrageous, in my opinion. You're just outrageous. There's no reason to have that level of you're not allowed to have any sort of life outside of sports. I want you to go home and think about what you did and never leave your room. Lock yourself into a room, and I want you to think about it until the next time you touch the floor. This is the NBA where there's 82 games. You might not like this answer, but it's a quick flush. We play again Sunday. We play again Monday. We got another game on Wednesday. And think about, you want to talk about leadership stuff. You got to learn how to play an 82-game season. You need to learn what it's like to go through this toxic journey of a big 6-month span of playing NBA basketball. If James Harden was to do that, that would almost be a big red alert and a big red flag to everybody else in the locker room. But you're telling me James Harden thought that this was so bad that he did what? He locked himself in his room and didn't touch anything until the next game because he was that worried about his performance? No. Hey, this shit happens. Next night. Hey, I had 2 rough nights. The next game, it'll change. Oh, what's that? I had 3. The 4th game, it'll be different. That's the way this works. You play Monday, you're in Orlando. You play Tuesday, you're in Cleveland. You play Wednesday, you're in St. Louis. You play this, St. Louis. I got the St. Louis Cardinals on my mind for some damn reason. But you get my point. All right, yeah, that was a tough one. All right, next game, Flusher, what do we got? That's how this league works. There's always one game around the corner where I hate to break it to you, but that's not how it works. So that's absolutely stupid, in my opinion, if you do feel like he's not allowed to. Oh, yeah, please. Yeah, Tommy Toughnuts on Twitter is mad at James Harden for going out with Lil Baby and Travis Scott. That was pre-planned before the game even happened. I want to let you know, Tommy Toughnuts, whoever you are out there, and there's 10 billion of you, because I heard it. I even heard Joel Embiid was soft because of the way that he helped Kevin Durant at one point after there was a hard foul. What are you? Shut up. Shut Shut up. They just lost 2 games in a row. Shut up. Now all of a sudden Joel Embiid is soft and James Harden's not allowed to do this. Shut up. I can't believe people. No, I love Lance from Kansas City. I'm not telling him to shut up. I think it's a fine question to ask me because I haven't had an opportunity yet to share my opinion on that. I'm just talking to Tommy Toughnuts here, who believes on social media that it's not okay for James Harden. Flip the script. Let's say that you have something planned on Friday night for 2 weeks, knowing that that Friday night you were going to do something. At work Friday, you screwed up. You screwed up big time. You're not going to hang out with your boys after? Okay, then shut up. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right, where are we at here with some of these comments in the chat? We got Embiid is soft in the paint. Okay. You're a big troll anyway, so I don't think you deserve a time of day today. So congratulations, Raymond, on your attempt of trolling me and getting me to feel a certain type of way. But unfortunately for you, that's not where I'm at tonight. You might catch me on another day where I'm willing and I'm satisfied with having that exchange. But if you personally believe that Joel Embiid is too soft in the paint, there's a reason why he averages what he averages at the line. There's a reason why he gets 18 free throws in a game. There's a reason why teams bitch and complain because they can't stop him, and he's a force, and he has so many tools in his bag that makes defenders have to worry about so many different ways to guard him that good luck. That's why Joel Embiid is in the MVP conversation this year. Nobody can stop him. Jonathan texts in and says, I don't give 2 shits that was the Orlando Magic. You got to win those close battles. Thankfully, you indeed did. Like Doc Rivers said pregame, these guys are pesty young shooters that won't go down without a fight. I appreciate the text, Jonathan. Normally, that's my full-on 1,000% response to games like this. Now that it was 2 games in a row, I'm still definitely leaning in that direction. It's just, I think that there's more common trends that we can apply in dialogue now with the slow starts that no matter who the opponent is constantly popping up, right? So there's definitely an angle to this where right now that we're getting a bit isolation heavy. The offense is getting a bit more stagnant. So it's a learning curve. It's adjustments. It's things needs to change. It's what will we work on tomorrow? All of these games leading up to the playoffs is really somewhat of not a tryout, but it's a practice schedule to get you to learn what you can and cannot run properly and what works and what's most smooth for your roster, your personnel, some rotations, some things that might work, like who George Niang, the rotations, all of that playing a massive role where, okay, we've seen this. So I'm taking it less away. My takeaway is less about them beating the Orlando Magic. And what are we seeing that's common in the last 2 efforts that need to be shaken up a bit and that has to definitely be different in the games that we watch moving forward. Less about the result, less about the win, even though that is important. And some of these scrappier teams towards the bottom make you earn it and make it tough, but good teams still find a way and squeak out. And the Sixers did that. But it's issues that keep piling up and keep showing up that have to definitely be worked out. They weren't so isolation heavy in the beginning. So what can we run again to make it look the same way that it did when James Harden touched the basketball for the first time in a Sixers uniform? What's up, bros? I think Tobias is going to be moved in the offseason. Yes, I agree with that. What do you think of a package of Tobias and Matisse for John Collins? No. Tobias Harris is getting moved financially to bring in another star. That's what's happening. That's what Daryl Morey's going to do. But I'm not going to dive deep into where Tobias Harris is going and what I'd be willing to give in a trade to move Tobias. That ain't the dialogue for today. We have to focus on this season, this backstretch, and a playoff series. That's where my mind is. Do I believe deep down that Daryl Morey will be making a move and Tobias Harris will no longer be a 76er when this season ends? Yes. Yes, I believe Tobias Harris is gone. But that's for another date. That's for a totally another time because right now, he's here and he's a part of this offense. And he's a part of what this team can do. Now, we've seen him at times when they play Cleveland step in and do nice defensively against Garland. We saw him at times against the Chicago Bulls play good defense against a DeMar DeRozan. What we need is to maximize Tobias Harris with this current roster by catching and shooting, and then hopefully that he can give us some of those defensive efforts that we've seen in those outings that I just mentioned, and that be a part of it. And that would be a crucial change of having some sort of reliable defender that can give you something, because at times this transition D is dreadful. And you heard words from Kevin Durant about where this team is when you move the basketball on them and you think about their defensive intensity on that side of the floor, the Sixers, and they give up at times and they just know they get beat and they're lazy on that end. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit of what Kevin Durant was saying, but that was his overall message of that having an effect on the way that the Nets play against the 76ers. But here's the problem with that. The Sixers are not just going to change into some defensive powerhouse overnight. They're going to beat you by scoring better offensively. They're going to outscore you. Joel Embiid getting to the line. James Harden getting to the line. James Harden hitting his threes. Maxey having a night. Tobias Harris shooting the ball well. You're going to beat teams because your offense is keeping up the flow with the opponent's offense, and then even more so. So you're matching their respected offense and more. And an added touch. It ain't going to be your defense. Now, I think there's more in their defense than what they're giving you. It's bad. It's bad. But I've seen it in the fourth quarter when it's time to lock in that it takes a little step up. And it does improve a tad. And it gives you a little bit more oomph involved. And you're slapping the damn floor. Not actually, but that lifestyle, that addition. We've seen it in the fourth. Raise the bar. Well, when can we see that bar raised? From the jump. From quarter one. And maybe that's what Doc Rivers was referencing after the game, which is why he thinks this team starts out slow. And if there was better defensive plays and better grit on that end, then naturally the other team doesn't feel as good as they do about scoring points. You could get out in transition. You could get some stops, maybe grab a damn rebound, and then move quickly down the court, and then get someone like Maxey in rhythm with his speed, and just maximize some of these players that have been having some slower nights over the last few games. Things could change. And if your mentality is different because the first 5 minutes look smoother, well, that can go a long way throughout the entirety of the action. And with that, we're going to shut things down here. I want to thank everybody so much for hanging out with me tonight here on Sports Talk with Broads. Do not forget, Monday morning, 10 a.m., you Phillies fans out there, we have a lot to talk about. Dave Dombrowski spoke. Joe Girardi spoke. There's apparently a Odubel Herrera signing that's not too far away, and I want to touch on it all. 10 a.m. Monday morning. Sports Talk with Broads / Coffee with Broads. We'll have a show. I want to hear from you. I will share my thoughts, which might be an outlier opinion. So definitely be aware of that stream here on Broads Media. With that, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you then.